The stars have always been my companions, not in the poetic way of dreamers who stare up at them and whisper wishes, but in the way of someone who has spent decades listening, recording, dissecting every frequency they hum into the void. I am not a poet, I am a listener. For most of my life, the galaxy has returned only silence, a vast hush that stretched from one spiral arm to the other. Humanity reached out, sent greetings on golden discs, built arrays so sensitive they could hear the breath of pulsars thousands of light years away, but all we heard was emptiness. It was like throwing a voice into a canyon and never hearing the echo return. That silence became more than data. It became a question. Were we truly alone? Or was there something out there choosing not to answer? I learned to live with the silence. Some nights, sitting in the control room of the observatory, surrounded by screens pulsing with faint traces of background radiation, I almost convinced myself it was comforting. No wars across the stars, no alien empires lurking in the dark, no threats waiting to descend. Just us, just humanity, given the galaxy like a blank canvas. It was a hopeful thought, but one I never fully believed. Nature abhors a vacuum, and the galaxy is far too vast, far too ancient for us to be its only voice. That silence always felt unnatural to me, as though it had been placed there deliberately. A curtain pulled across a stage before the actors step out. The others at the observatory laughed at my doubts. They called it cosmic paranoia. To them, silence meant peace. To me, it meant warning. I could never shake the thought that someone, or something, had ensured we heard nothing. A predator in the forest doesn't announce its presence. A trap doesn't sing before it snaps shut. The quiet made me restless, as though the entire galaxy was holding its breath. Then, one night, it changed. At first, it was nothing more than a flicker in the static, a faint rhythm buried deep in the noise. I thought it was interference, maybe a glitch in the software. But it repeated, a pattern, subtle, steady, like a pulse. I listened again and again, heart hammering in a way it hadn't since I was a boy, staring at the night sky for the first time. The silence had broken, something was speaking, and after all these years of waiting, I was the one who had heard it first. The air in the control room seemed different, charged, as if the stars themselves had leaned closer to listen with me. I should have been thrilled, but instead I felt cold. I had longed for this moment, dreamed of it, yet standing at the edge of discovery, I felt no triumph. The silence hadn't lifted like dawn, breaking over darkness. It had cracked like glass under pressure, and through the crack, something was beginning to seep. I replayed the signal 100 times before I dared to admit it wasn't a malfunction. Each time it came back the same. A pulse, faint but deliberate, hidden beneath the natural static of the cosmos. It wasn't the chaotic chatter of quasars, or the steady hum of pulsars. This was different, too precise, too intentional. A rhythm, almost like a heartbeat, pressing against the silence we had mistaken for emptiness. I stared at the readouts, watched the thin green lines spike and fall, and felt as though I was staring at the fingerprint of something alive. For hours I sat there, frozen, torn between disbelief and awe. The rational part of me screamed that it was noise, an error, a coincidence of frequencies lining up just so. But another part, quieter, deeper, told me I was hearing a voice. I had spent my life combing the void for a whisper, and now that I had one, I could not look away. I fed the data into every filter we had, stripping away layers of radiation, cosmic dust, magnetic distortions. With each pass, the pulse grew clearer, like an outline slowly emerging from fog. When I finally isolated it, I leaned in close to the speaker, holding my breath as though the faintest exhale might disturb the sound. The signal came in waves, rising and falling with mathematical precision. Not random, not chance. It was structured, encoded, a message wrapped in the cold skin of static. My throat tightened as the realization sank in. Someone had hidden it. The universe wasn't silent. It had been forced into quiet. And now, through some crack in that vast hush, a fragment had slipped free. I should have called someone immediately. Protocol demanded it. But I didn't. Instead, I sat in the darkness of the control room, the glow of the monitors painting my face pale, and I listened. My hands trembled as I began the long, careful work of translation. Each pulse was a note, each pause a breath. It was language, though unlike any we had ever known. Still, patterns are patterns, and human minds are built to chase them. Hours bled into dawn as I worked, exhausted but alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. The more I unraveled, the stranger it became. It wasn't a greeting, no warmth, no welcome. The voice, if it could be called that, was measured, urgent, almost strained, like someone whispering through a locked door. At times, I thought I could hear the faintest edge of desperation, hidden in the rhythm, a warning wrapped in numbers. When the first coherent phrase finally emerged from the translation software, I sat back hard in my chair, blood pounding in my ears. I expected wonder, discovery, maybe even fear of the unknown. But what blinked onto the screen was something else entirely. A message, simple yet suffocating in its implication. Do not come here. Do not wake them. The silence is not empty. It is a prison. I read it again and again, my mouth dry, my heart refusing to steady. The silence I had questioned my whole life wasn't an absence. It was containment. And for the first time, I wished I had never listened so closely. The words glared at me from the screen, sharp and merciless. Do not come here. Do not wake them. The silence is not empty. It is a prison. I whispered the message aloud, my voice sounding small in the vastness of the observatory. It was absurd, impossible, terrifying. And yet the data didn't lie. The translation had been checked and cross-checked. Every filter, every calibration insisted this was real. Someone, somewhere, had carved their warning into the static of the cosmos, buried it so deep that only relentless human stubbornness could uncover it. And I had been the one to pull it free. For hours I sat in a haze, staring at the phrase, half convinced I had lost my mind. Humanity had always expected first contact to be a greeting, a handshake across the stars. But this was no handshake. It was a hand slammed against the glass, telling us to stay away. I felt a strange sense of violation, as if I had opened a door I wasn't supposed to know existed. I had long imagined the silence was unnatural, but I never dreamed it was deliberate. The weight of the warning pressed on me. If the galaxy was a prison, then who, or what, was imprisoned? And more importantly, who were the jailers? The signal carried no name, no coordinates, just the stark message and the pulse of urgency woven into its structure. It felt less like a casual transmission and more like something smuggled past a watchful guard. Whoever sent it had taken a risk, perhaps a final act of defiance or desperation. Sleep eluded me. I found myself pacing the empty corridors of the facility, the hum of machinery filling the spaces between my thoughts. Humanity had waited centuries for proof of others. Now we had it, but it came not as a promise of kinship, but as a curse. I imagined what would happen when the council heard of this. The skeptics would dismiss it, demand more evidence, accuse me of falsifying results. The ambitious would see only opportunity, a puzzle to solve, a challenge to overcome. And then there would be those, perhaps the most dangerous of all, who would ignore the warning entirely. Humans have never been good at turning away from mysteries. Still, part of me couldn't shake the pull of curiosity either. If the silence was a prison, then what could possibly demand such measures? What force was so dreadful that the galaxy itself had been hushed to hide it? My rational mind screamed at me to stop, to erase the data, to forget I had ever seen the words. But the human heart doesn't work that way. The message wasn't just a warning. It was an invitation cloaked in fear, and I could not unhear it. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I would present it, of course. Protocol demanded that much. But even as I prepared my report, I already felt the stirrings of conflict. This wasn't just discovery. This was temptation. The silence had finally spoken. And now every instinct in me whispered the same dangerous thought. Perhaps the warning was never meant to be followed. Perhaps it was meant to be tested. The council chamber was a cathedral of glass and steel, its ceiling high enough to make a man feel like an ant beneath the weight of human ambition. Delegates from every colony and station filled the tiers, their faces cast in the cold glow of the projection I had prepared. The words hovered above us all, stark and undeniable. Do not come here. Do not wake them. The silence is not empty. It is a prison. My voice echoed in the chamber as I recounted the discovery, the filters, the hours of verification. I left nothing out, though every sentence felt like I was tightening a noose around my own neck. When I finished, silence fell, not the cosmic kind, but the heavy, suffocating kind that comes before an argument. The first response was laughter, thin and scornful. "A prank," one delegate scoffed. "An artifact of faulty processing. We've seen this before. Ghost signals, glitches in the machinery of eager minds." Others nodded, relieved to dismiss it, their fear disguised as skepticism. To accept the message meant accepting that the galaxy was not what we thought it was. And comfort is a powerful drug. But then another voice,